As much as we all love to look at these architectural digest photos of multi-million-dollar homes that have marble slabs that are $20,000 each, their approach to decorating their homes is completely different from us peasants. So I wanted to compile some of my favorite interior design inspiration that is actually a realistic representation of what's achievable for the average person. There is no fancy architecture, no designer furniture, just real people with real homes doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. While I was looking for example photos, I was noticing that most of the places that are considered well-designed have breathtaking architecture and giant windows and high ceilings and crown molding and tons of square footage and stuff like that. So I did my best to make sure that these examples have none of that. Although there might be a few of these things that accidentally snuck in, so bear with me here. I also noticed that a lot of these well-designed examples tend to have vintage designer couches that are within the $10,000 to $20,000 range, and other furniture and decor that is comparably priced. So again, we are doing none of that. We're going for regular couches in regular homes with regular ceiling heights and window sizes. Before we get into it, I'm thinking of starting monthly group calls over on my Patreon for all tiers within the next month or so, just to chat about home design stuff. We could do a show and tell of our recent thrift finds. We could collectively help design one of your homes. We could bounce ideas off of each other, anything like that. I'm thinking it's gonna be pretty casual, and there aren't many people over there yet, so you've got a pretty good shot at having a whole entire meeting dedicated to designing your home, or just running questions by me or whatever you want. And if you have any opinions on Zoom versus Google Meet, definitely let me know, because I'm still deciding on the back end of all of this. Anyways, if you're new here, my name is Medora. I use they, them pronouns, and I make videos about home design for girls, gays, and theys. So let's take a look at some actually realistic home design inspiration. Okay, we are starting off strong. I love this. There's a lot of things to love about this. I love the simple muted color palette. I love the way that the bedspread is tucked in at the end of the bed. It makes it look so much cleaner. I love how there's just one decorative throw pillow, but it works really well with all the rest of the other colors. I love how there's matching nightstands and table lamps that don't take up a ton of visual space and weight, because this is a relatively small space. Big enough for what looks like a queen bed, but with just enough space on the sides to walk around it. Not much more than that. I love the art above the bed. I love how the mat around the art really ties into the color of the bedspread. I do wish that there was maybe some sexier mood lighting, but I am wondering if this little thingy back here is one of those sunset lamps. So that would suffice. And I think if I spend this much time on all of these, I will be here for a few hours. So let's move on. This is just a great example of styling. I don't necessarily love the exposed bulb, and I'm not fully sure what this wire contraption thing is, but I love that there is a light pointing at the art, and I love how this art was very intentionally chosen to fit within the space, and I love that there's just a little bit of layering happening with the funky candle holder, and then the book with what looks like another little book on top of it. So again, you don't need much, but like I said in my last video, some good art, a good book, some good lighting, a plant, that's all you really need. Again, very simple, just a quality solid wood cabinet with a couple functional things on top, and then some art. And then again, a little weird funky light. I think part of the reason this one works is because of the different heights and the layering that's happening, but another part of it is actually the design of this cabinet in particular, because it looks like the hinges are much further in, which means that a lot of the first 6 to 8 inches of that cabinet all swings out, which means you can't set anything on top of those 6 to 8 inches, which I imagine helps keep the top of this surface much cleaner, because if you're anything like me, you probably have trouble keeping surfaces clean. And honestly, I think that is one of the key things, if not the main key thing, to making your space look and feel good. This one is almost giving dorm room if you could pick your own furniture, and I'm not mad at it. I really love the green upholstered mattress, because I really feel like that takes it up a notch, and is the main reason I think it's probably not actually a dorm, but it is very similar to standard dorm sizes. I love the very childlike art on the wall, especially in contrast with the muted tones of the rest of the room, the very adult furniture. I love the tiny little lamp in the window. I love how they've divided the space to have a little seating area. I love the shelves on the wall to make use of the vertical space. Although the one thing I'm confused about is why the bed is pulled away from the wall a foot or so. That feels strange to me, but maybe part of the wall juts out or something. I don't know. This one does look like it has bigger windows and taller ceilings, but it also looks like an old building. And this desk situation is probably only 2 or 3 feet wide. So it is not taking up a lot of space. I think that this sort of situation is a really fantastic use of space, especially if you need a desk and you also need more storage. And especially if you need those things to be in your living room or your bedroom, for example, and you need them to not look ugly. Now, my one concern is that as pretty as that chair is, it does not look very comfortable. So I'm guessing that this person maybe only works from home like once a week. But it also looks like the exact same chairs that they have at the dining table. So they might have just styled it with this chair for the photo, and they secretly have a more comfortable chair that they actually use to sit at the desk. This is one of those things that will forever be a mystery because it's Pinterest and it's just a photo and we don't get to talk to this person. So as much as I do love the look of a clean fridge that doesn't have anything on it, I do also love cute, artsy stuff like this that kind of like tells a story about who you are. Now, granted, if you are going to do this, I would probably recommend keeping it to just the side of your fridge or just the top freezer section or something like that. And also, don't just like throw a bunch of random shit up there. Make sure to like curate it a little bit. Make sure the colors are working well together, right? Like we've got a lot of navy blues going on in here. We've got some greens. We've got a bunch of black and white pictures. We've got a lot of cream colored paper, stuff like that. And then cute, unique magnets are definitely a must. Again, what I love about this is it's so simple, so clean, so curated. Obviously, there are nice hardwood floors, but other than that, it's incredibly simple. There's just one piece of art, one textural thing hanging on the wall. I wouldn't mind a plant down in that corner, but other than that, I'm not mad at this. And I think it's successful, particularly because of the two colors on the bed, right? We've got this dusty blue, and then we've got kind of a burnt orange cinnamon color, and those are opposites on the color wheel. The lamp is nothing special, but it looks like it gives off a really good quality of light, and it's not ugly, so I'll take it. This is a little bit more Gen Z than I would personally go for, and a little bit more clutter that I would love to see, specifically this like slicer thingy on the counter. But I really love how they've leaned into these green tile countertops and just brought in a bunch of pops of color into the room instead of being scared of color. Again, I like the use of vertical space with the shelves. I love that they've put some bamboo blinds up above the window. And I'm not even mad at this like vintage light fixture that I assume was already there, because I feel like it kind of goes with the like colorful vintage kitschy theme that they've got going on. This one is very interesting because at first glance it feels very high end to me, but there's nothing saying this furniture is particularly expensive. Like there's just a bed surrounded by curtains, a chair that looks like it is in the process of being reupholstered, and then this bench situation is probably a lot less expensive than a couch. And even the coffee table they have really looks more like a side table. So this was probably actually very affordable. It's just a very minimal color palette, and they've used a lot of restraint when it comes to styling the space. There's the two pieces of art and the two things on the coffee table. And even the extra blankets and pillows that are stacked on the bench look really good because they're all within the same very limited color palette. With this kitchen, I do wish that they'd kept the stuff on the fridge to only one side of the fridge instead of two. But other than that, I really love the way that they've brought in this extra prep space and storage space. And the way they're using the vertical space is just so effective. And it really looks like everything has its place, which is one of the things that helps a lot. We've got the knife rack, we've got the little shelf, we've got the hanging pot rack, we've got the little bar with hooks underneath for pot holders. Plus there's even some extra shelves for the pot lids on that lower shelf. So I definitely get the impression that this was very well thought out. And then of course, fresh flowers are always a bonus. I think the only thing I would change about this one is putting some bamboo shades or Roman blinds on the windows. But other than that, I love this. I would maybe bring the pendant a little bit further down too if we could. But really, just like a simple table, nothing fancy, probably thrifted, maybe even free. And then a couple of really simple boxes to make up this window seat. And then even the upholstery and the cushions doesn't look like anything fancy. Like there's a solid chance that they just took a piece of plywood, stuck a piece of foam on top of it, wrapped the fabric around and stapled it to the plywood. There's no piping around the edges. There's no particularly fancy corners. It looks very doable, but it also doesn't look like a poorly done DIY. One of the things that definitely really helps the space is these two cute vintage leather chairs. But if I had to guess, I'd probably say that that was the biggest expense in this entire space. And even then, they probably got them off of Craigslist or Marketplace for relatively cheap. Again, I really love the one single art piece on the wall and the one decorative thing on the table. It feels very curated, it feels very restrained, but not in a way that feels cold and harsh and minimalist, just in a way that feels comforting and inviting. And like, hey, this table is ready to be sat at. This table is ready to have a conversation, is ready to provide the space to eat a meal, stuff like that. Again, a very simple, very restrained use of color here. We've got all white bedding, all white walls, all white whatever this furniture built-in thingy behind the bed is. And then all of the color comes from the books and the art. And I really specifically love the way that the lamp and the art speak to each other with that thin black lines. That's just one of those subtle details that a lot of people probably won't notice. But if you can find ways for your things to kind of be in conversation with each other like that, that really helps the space feel cohesive. And then I also really love how they've done this like fake built-in thing, because I feel like it provides a lot more stability, a lot more grounding to the bed space. Plus it also adds a lot of architectural detail, and with all of the stuff on top, that helps add some dimension and depth. There's not a lot we can see from this home in this photo, but again, one of the main themes that we'll keep coming back to is I love the use of vertical space. We've got the shelves on this right-hand side, plus a spot to hang hats, and then we've got the 4 frames stacked on top of each other in a tiny little space that looks like it was made for these frames. It is kind of bugging me that that little dresser thing is not centered under the mirror and not centered with the wall, but that is literally a 2-second fix. Again, like with the last one, I really love how there's these 4 small art pieces stacked on top of each other in a tiny little wall space that would otherwise go completely unnoticed, completely unused. And so I am realizing just now that I feel like the reason I like small art on small sections of wall is because it feels intentional, right? It feels like you're not forgetting about this wall. It feels like you actually considered every single space in the room. And again, that's not to say that you should fill up every blank space, because then that'll just look cluttered. But if you just find like a couple little spots in your home to give a little bit of like care and intention and life to, that will just help a lot. The couch looks pretty thriftable, and I really love how the art is placed in a nice little cluster, very off-center. That really allows for some nice breathing room in between the frames and the tiny little heads on the wall. And then again, we've seen this theme come up a lot, especially in this video, but I love the use of restraint for the coffee table decor, right? Like there is stuff on the coffee table. It is styled, but there is still plenty of space to like set your coffee or set a book or something like that. I should really work on finding more examples that have a bunch of color in them, because I know very neutral and monochrome is not everyone's cup of tea, but it is a really easy way to make a space feel more put together and more thoughtful and curated and high end. So I do really love how they've done that here. I love how they chose the white shoe storage thingies and the white shelves to blend in with the wall. And then the pops of color and texture and everything are from the art and the books and the boxes that store things on the shelves. Very practical, very functional, very good use of vertical space, stuff like that. This one does look like it has a bit taller ceilings, but you could totally do this exact concept without the tall ceilings. I love the use of curtains to close off a closet space, especially if you're in a small space where you don't want to be seeing all of your clothes all the time. It's a really great way to use those like 2 feet out from the wall and use that entire space from like floor to ceiling. Especially if we were to put 1 or 2 shelves above there, you could fit so much in that space. This is just a cute little styling moment and a fun little way to bring in a few pops of color. And again, with the color theory, blue and orange are opposites. So I love that we have the blue next to the orange, but then I also love that we have the wood peppermill with the yellow undertones in there to kind of act as like a buffer color. I don't love this red thing and this pink handle in there. That's definitely throwing me off a little bit. But if all the utensils in there were just wood and metal, I would be totally fine with it. Again, we're seeing some common themes pop up. Really good use of vertical space with that spice rack there. I love that it's stainless steel because it really helps tie in the kettles on the stove. And then I especially love this grouping of all black and white photos because I feel like it's a really neat way to like bring some personality to your fridge without having it be overwhelming if you're, you know, one of the people who finds color overwhelming. With this space, I really love how it feels really simple and neutral and muted on the surface, but there is actually a lot of color going on here. We've got these like red and blue tones in the rug. We've got this green throw. We've got a ton of color going on in the art. And then we have this unexpected pop of yellow, which I really love. And then I really love how they painted the ceiling just a slightly darker, slightly warmer, like really creamy, buttery color. Again, it's probably one of those things that a lot of people won't notice, but it just helps make the space feel so much more cozy and inviting and just like a little bit more interesting. It's getting dark and stormy outside, so I had to change the lighting, so hopefully that's a little bit better. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think I have time for too much more of these, and there are a lot left. So we'll definitely have to do a part 2, maybe a part 3, maybe even a part 4. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see those. But let's do a few more before we finish up. Again, this is a fantastic use of vertical space and restrained color palette and like real, raw, tangible materials rather than like plastic. And I really love how there's a lithograph, or at least a print of one, like right next to the paper towels. Like just that juxtaposition of including art along with a bunch of other functional items, makes my brain very happy. Okay, here's some more color and a different style and all of that. It definitely is an older house with some like nicer trim around the windows and the doors and stuff like that. But other than that, it's a pretty normal sized room, normal ceiling heights, stuff like that. While I do think it's been a little overused in the recent years, I do think that color drenching is a very effective way of bringing in a lot of color without it actually feeling overwhelming, even though you would think it would because you're painting everything the exact same color. But it's a really easy way to bring in a monochrome color palette because like the bedding is green, the walls are green, the curtains are green. This whole space is actually very monochrome, but it feels super cozy and inviting because of the more like cottagecore farmhouse kind of style. I'm not usually a fan of a gallery wall, but I understand that in this context, they're using it to create a very specific vibe. So it is functional in that way, and I will allow it. But again, like the same principles still stand like we've been talking about. Surfaces are clear, bed is made, there's an intentional use of color, stuff like that. Okay, last one. I love this one specifically because it shows a really beautiful way of incorporating hobbies and passions into your space in a way that doesn't feel kitschy. It doesn't feel like it's overwhelming the space. It just looks good. And again, I think the reasons for that I keep coming back to are clear surfaces. There's nothing on top of the speaker. There's no junk anywhere. It's a limited color palette. It's all whites and browns and all of that. And the only real color is coming from the CDs and whatever else is on those shelves. And then we're using real tangible materials that aren't pretending to be anything else, right? So we've got the real wood, we've got metal, we've got the acrylic around the record player, stuff like that. So that's it for part 1 of actually realistic home design inspiration. And if you want to stick around for parts 2, 3, and 4, because I have so many more pictures here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. Again, if you want to support this channel or get live design calls, head over to patreon.com/medorakia. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, go to medorakia.com. Bye. Why am I sweating so much? Is literally wearing a sweater in August. It's fine. It's fine. Sit your butt down. Jeez. This lighting sucks. I really need to figure out this lighting. Oh, I don't have any of those lights on. I filmed this entire video without those lights on. Oh well, I'll live.